What's up everybody, man, back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we are going to be doing another Godzilla Explained for Godzilla -1. I have been loving doing these lately, and I wanted to give some comments on this one because I have been doing some discussions on the Godzillasaurus on Odo Island, with us talking about his regeneration, the scars on his neck, everything like that, trying to figure out who his next opponent's going to be. One question has been raised over and over again, and that's, would Shikishima have been able to kill Godzilla and prevent the entire tragedy of Godzilla -1 had he opened fire on Odo Island? And so today we are going to be doing a deep dive into Godzilla's pre-evolved state on Odo Island to answer that question by going over information from the movie, from the director Takashi Yamazaki in interviews, and I'm excited to say, from the Godzilla -1 novelization. This will be our first Godzilla -1 novelization breakdown video, and I can't wait to get into it. Starting out, I want to talk about the Legend of Godzilla. So in the movie, there is a legend about Godzilla. Obviously, the mechanic is able to recognize Godzilla when he comes on shore and says it's because one of the islanders, one of the Odo Island villagers, told them about Godzilla. So what is the Legend of Godzilla, and what do the Odo Islanders know? Well, Takashi Yamazaki opened up about that in a Toho Kingdom interview, explaining that the backstory is that there is a very urban village on Odo Island that has legends, grounded in reality, about Godzilla that spread through word of mouth. The legend specifically is that Godzilla is a deep-sea creature who lives off the shores of the island. The villagers actually offered Godzilla sacrifices, like in the 1954 film. And much like in that film, it's unclear how Godzilla responded to those sacrifices or how he felt about that. What we do find out from the novelization is that according to locals, on days when deep-sea fishing picks up, Godzilla will return home. It turns out that the fish actually kill themselves, trying to rush to the surface to escape Godzilla, pressurizing as they do so, paralleling what will happen to Godzilla at the end of the film. The deep-sea fish brought up by Godzilla are a local delicacy on Odo Island, and even the mechanics enjoy eating them in the novelization. So here's everything we know about Godzilla, or what many people call the Godzillasaurus in -1, before he gets radiated. Here's everything we know. First of all, Takashi Yamazaki refused to answer in a Toho Kingdom interview if Godzilla is the last of his kind, stating that's an unexplained mystery to be explored in the future. It's left open to us purposefully. Does that mean Godzilla's gonna fight another Godzilla in the future? Well, go check out my videos about the scars to find out. As for now, it is confirmed in the novelization Godzilla is at least 15 meters tall when he comes onto land. This means Godzilla's approximately 49 feet when he makes his first appearance at the start of Godzilla -1, actually placing him at the exact same size as King Kong in the 1933 film. 50 feet's actually one of Kong's main base heights throughout his whole franchise, which I find interesting. It also means Godzilla about triples in height when he winds up in his final state in the movie. In Godzilla -1, Shikishima describes Godzilla saying, "It was like a dinosaur that over the years had turned into something else." He later describes Godzilla as a giant monster like a dinosaur. The purpose of the Godzillasaurus in -1 is very intentional. Yamazaki wanted to make it clear that Godzilla, first of all, is a naturally occurring creature in this universe that is a victim to the atomic bomb, but also is a creature that grows over the course of the film, from one life form into the next. Yamazaki, in that Toho Kingdom interview that I keep referencing, talks about how Godzilla, after he was hit with a nuke, had to elevate himself into a half-creature, half-god in order to survive. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So Yamazaki wanted to make it clear that Godzilla can grow from one state to the next, but the Odo Godzilla was made to look different from the Godzillasaurus in 1991 as a way to make it clear this is a different creature. It's not like the traditional dinosaur that just happened to look a little more Godzilla like the Godzillasaurus in 1991. Godzilla on Odo Island is his own already monstrous thing. Godzilla is a thing that is already mythical. He is already a creature beyond our natural science. Behaviorally, we know Godzilla is incredibly territorial. Godzilla responds to the light being blasted in his face on Odo Island as a threat, and he also responds to his own roar later in the movie as a challenge for dominance, again sowing the seeds for a Godzilla versus Godzilla match. After his attack on Ginza, Godzilla considers Tokyo as part of his territory, expanding his reach, according to Noda. This is not why Godzilla attacks the US naval ships early in the film. Godzilla is not on some territorial conquest at the start of the movie. That is a revenge mission as as we'll talk about later. Godzilla is also covered in scars at the start of the film, implying he has been in some sort of dangerous situations before the movie started. Go check out my videos on that. I've done 2 giving my thoughts and speculations on that really quickly. One of the most popular theories on that is that Godzilla was hit with a boat's propeller and that's what caused the scarring, as that can be seen on a lot of real-life animals like whales. The reason I don't think that's the case is because Godzilla's fully aware of what happens to him because of humanity and what happens to him because of nature, as we'll talk about in a second. Godzilla's fully aware, and I don't think Godzilla would have let Shikishima live when Shikishima's sitting there in the plane trembling, about to pull the trigger. I think Godzilla would have attacked him if a human boat had hurt him on accident. I don't think he'd be taking any risks. He's too aggressive and he's too smart for that. It's been implied in the novelization that Godzilla has been around for generations, and potentially centuries. He is a mythical beast. Speaking of Godzilla's intelligence, he hunts fish and often brings them to the people of Odo. It's unclear if that's intentional or not, but he has something of a symbiotic relationship with the people of Odo. Yamazaki reveals that Godzilla is smart enough to chase fish down to the lower depths, causing them to pressurize and float back up to the surface. If that doesn't work, he chases them to the surface himself, and they go so fast that they wind up again pressurizing and dying on the way up. Godzilla was a peaceful creature to the people of Odo, and was smart enough to knowingly spare Tachibana and Shikishima during the Odo attack, as he realizes those are the only 2 people that don't respond to him with violence. It's because of Shikishima's inaction that Godzilla lets him live. In the novelization, it's stated that the reason Godzilla's lumbering around the outpost after he knocks down the guard tower isn't because he's searching for the people trying to kill him, it's because he's watching the flames and observing the outpost. Here's a little detail that's super bizarre and was cut from the film. In the novelization, and keep in mind I'm translating it as I go, so maybe my translations are a little inaccurate, but I did translate this in 3 different ways to see, and all 3 of them made it clear that something along the lines of Godzilla eats several barrels of gasoline before stomping on them, causing the remaining barrels to explode after sparks from the destroyed searchlights of the guard tower contact the oil spill. That's what causes the explosion under Godzilla's foot. But the fact that he eats those barrels shows that he's a very curious creature at the start. Speaking of Godzilla's behavior, Godzilla mainly attacks through headbutts, chomps, and tail strikes at the start of the movie, with his arms being too small for close combat, making him vulnerable to close-up attacks, implying that something could have gotten close enough to leave the scars on him. Takashi Yamazaki confirmed in an interview that Godzilla on Odo Island is a completely naturally occurring creature within the -1 universe. He hasn't had any form of radiation damage yet he still features his healing factor. This implies something very interesting, not only about Godzilla's scars, that they might be fresher than we think, but also that Shikishima might not have been able to stop Godzilla had he opened fire, as Godzilla was already able to regenerate. Also, we see some of the scars on Godzilla's neck freshly open when he looks at Shikishima, implying that some are fresher than others, and his healing factor worked pretty slow before the nuclear blast. In the novelization, Shikishima is certain the 20mm gun would have killed Godzilla, but he doesn't open fire for a few reasons. Number 1, he believes Godzilla should be left alone and that he should be allowed to return to the sea. He doesn't think that humans should be allowed to kill Godzilla. He also realizes that opening fire would be a suicide mission, as Godzilla would likely kill him before he could finish the job, making it an entirely pointless thing in the first place, much like his kamikaze attack. Tachibana is also positive the guns will kill Godzilla. This is why Shikishima carries so much guilt in the film. If that wasn't clear already, Shikishima fully believes he would have been able to stop Godzilla, and he fully blames himself for not doing so. He thinks that everything that happens from that point on is his fault for his lack of action. And that's a lot of the guilt that weighs on him, starting from him projecting on himself about not going through with his kamikaze attack, and then into not attacking Godzilla, resulting in the mechanics on Odo dying. But like I said, Godzilla already retained his regenerative capabilities. Godzilla's mutation in the novelization is given a lot more detail. First of all, while sleeping peacefully in Bikini Atoll, Operation Crossroads, Test Baker, hits Godzilla, causing him to mutate, just like in the film. It's explained that Godzilla was burned down to ashes, his skin boiled and ripped away to little flesh remaining. The novelization paints a much more graphic and sympathetic transformation for Godzilla. Godzilla is again confirmed to have a natural regeneration factor. That's why he's been able to stay alive this long in the first place. That's why he's generations old. Godzilla's regeneration is then hijacked by the radiation, trying to restore him back to his original form, but there is so little of him left that it overcompensates and grows like a cancer. Godzilla can't stop growing. His regeneration goes crazy. Godzilla's skin goes from a thick leathery flesh to a rock-like texture. His spines grow and branch off incredibly fast and painfully like snowflakes. Godzilla's skin keeps layering itself like an ancient oyster, over and over again, overcompensating for the damage that's happened. The novelization states, error after error, Godzilla regrows. Godzilla recognizes that he is no longer what he was before, and he hates humanity for that. He realizes that it was a human weapon that has done this to him, and that the nuclear bomb was used by humanity intentionally. The novelization states very boldly, this was the moment Godzilla was born. Following this, Godzilla goes on a revenge quest. He starts to attack all the US naval ships in the area. The US isn't actually able to retaliate against Godzilla at all, as he wages war on them in the Pacific. They fear any form of retaliation, even self-defense, would alert the Soviets, and so Godzilla is left to rampage and sink any ships he comes across. It seems that some of Godzilla's radioactive flesh is actually recovered after he downs the US submarine, alerting the Americans to his connection to the atomic bomb, and they immediately recognize that it's their fault for the tests in Bikini Atoll, so they're fully aware that they caused this. And this leads into the big question, would Shikishima have been able to stop Godzilla? And what would that mean? First of all, I think it's pretty clear already, not just from me, but from the movie. I think the movie paints a pretty clear picture already. I don't think so. No, period. Shikishima would not have been able to stop Godzilla. And I think it's very telling that Godzilla's aware that humanity nuked him and immediately goes on a revenge quest. I think if Shikishima had opened fire on Godzilla, he would have first of all not died. I think Shikishima's right. He wouldn't have been able to kill Godzilla in time. Godzilla would have attacked him, killed him, and then he probably would have killed Tachibana as well. And I also think Godzilla would harbor even more rage against humanity following this, making him even more dangerous once he's hit with the atomic bomb. And if you take out Shikishima at the start of the film, then there's no one left to try and sacrifice themselves at the end of the film, stopping Godzilla, which means his rampage continues and humanity loses. If Shikishima dies, Godzilla nukes all of the ships in the ocean at the end of the film, and everybody loses. It's a lose-lose for the whole world, and there's no brief pause where, at least for now, they've stopped Godzilla until a sequel, and we'll find out what happens in a sequel, but at least for now, Shikishima has restored peace to the world by defeating Godzilla, and he would not have been able to do that if he opened fire. I also think even if Shikishima was able to open fire directly on Godzilla's face, taking him out, maybe even blowing up his brain for a brief moment, and Godzilla goes down and seems dead, he would have regenerated and again come back even more aggressively later. I don't think Godzilla's going to be even as peaceful as he was in the film had he been attacked so aggressively when he was younger. But most importantly, and I know I could have just jumped straight to this, but it kind of ruins the fun, and also I wanted to go into all of this stuff in the novelization and paint a full picture of the Godzillasaurus, or the pre-evolved Godzilla. Most importantly, director Takashi Yamazaki flat out confirms, because Godzilla was able to withstand a nuclear blast, the 20mm gun on Shikishima's plane wouldn't have had much effect on Godzilla. It would have only upset him, and like I said, everybody would be worse off for it. And although the character of Shikishima will never get to know that, at least us, the viewers, we can take some solace in knowing Shikishima is justified in his peaceful actions. And not only that, but had he opened fire on Godzilla, things would have gotten a lot worse. I really like that, the idea that Shikishima's supposed cowardly actions of not opening fire wind up being the only thing that can save the day in the end. I really like that. What do you think about all this? Even with everything I've said, you're still welcome to your own interpretations. Do you think Shikishima would have been able to stop Godzilla? Or what do you think that would have looked like? What do you think it would have looked like if he opened fire on him in the first place? And what are your thoughts on the entire scope of Godzilla before he's radiated, based on the novelization and the film and those interviews, and now that we've been able to put together a full picture? I love the pre-evolved Godzilla. I think the design is awesome. I think the characterization is awesome. I think the lore is awesome, and I'm very into it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. I had a great time making this one, and I cannot wait to do more deep dives into the novelization to come. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons that I'm able to make videos like this for you. And if you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below, where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man out.